Yeah, after understanding the requirement of the RBI under Gopalakrishna Committee recommendations, banks are undergoing a transition in the technology upgradation or in the technological advancements in providing the quality services to the clients or assured services to the clients or customers. The project management comes into the picture. Project management is a task given to a particular group of people to do a project implementation, and project implementation has certain requirements, certain requirements to complete the task within time, and there could be a risk arising out of project management. What are those risks? Inadequate security features enforced during the implementation of the IT systems. Observed in banking industry in the past must be provided for, like general access to the control, identification of authentication controls, audit trails, communication controls, data migration controls, take account of the fact that bank system may need to be online, so and so, all these things 24/7 or 365 days, etc. All these considerations should be considered before project is finalized for the development. What are the best practices resulting out of that? Project management, baseline control implemented, IS audit is involvement, post the implementation of the implementation reviews, regulatory certification for pre-implementation and pilot running. All these things will be good practices in that. Now let us understand, after understanding these Gopalakrishna Committee recommendations, requirement and project management issue and best practices, let us understand the prepaid card issues. Card information held in the magnetic strip, including the primary account numbers with an expiry date. Card can be cloned if details of the magnetic strip can be copied onto a skimming machine or skimming devices. Card can be stolen or lost, used for the cardholders not present transactions over the phone, etc. PIN can be obtained using hidden cameras in ATM, etc. All these are the weaknesses in the card system. How best can be card risk mitigation can be done? Use of chip and PIN based cards, awareness and training among the customers and merchants also, appropriate physical security, cautionary sites, ATM sites, watch out for the cameras, performance and maintenance. When we provide a camera, CCTV camera, it's not enough. CCTV camera has to be properly mounted, properly monitored for its function, properly recordings must be verified, and then the analysis of the records has to be done, preservation of the record also to be done. These are the internal requirements revolving around the CCTV camera maintenance. Watch for these stealthy devices, like skimming devices. If somebody is planting any device posing as a customer, those should be watched. Shield entry and entry of a PIN and ATM with a opaque viewer things. And regularly check for the card activities and balances, and awareness on the merchant thing. The monitoring internal accounts. Another area of security concern is internal accounts. Internal accounts which talk about suspense account or sundry account or any miscellaneous account which are parking places of the any differences in the account, or which are the parking places of the unaccounted classified accounts, expenses, etc. These involve these are the areas of common frauds. Involves unauthorized creation of the credit or debit overcrowded, or accounts with several items is grouped together, difficult to trace and track them or reconciliation them. Example, suspense account, etc. Unauthorized credit or debit is made to customer account. Accounts not supported by KYC or parked in these accounts. Funds are withdrawn without reconciliation or approval. These are some of the things in the internal accounts of the bank or financial institution that can pose a problem. How best they can be solutions? How best they can be prevented? Combination of role-based access and least privilege restrictions can be enforced. Restrict teller operations of the staff to post transactions to administrative accounts like suspense account or sundry accounts without the permission approval of the person, restrict the finance department from staff to post transactions directly to the customer accounts, GL audit of the GL audit at periodical interviews, clear timeless and clearing items in suspense. You have to adopt a mechanism to clear the suspense items in the suspense account, and so that the balance becomes nil when the clearing items are totally cleared. Now comes to the IT governance. Financial institutions should implement an ongoing security process and institute appropriate governance for security function, assigning clear and appropriate roles and responsibilities to the board of directors, management and employees. This is a governance framework which involves the responsibility of the management, top management, in line with the requirements of the SEBI clause 49. Okay. There should be a strategy. Financial should be developed a strategy that defines control objectives and establish an implementation plan. Security strategy should also include appropriate consideration for preservation, detection and response mechanisms, implementation of the least privileges and least permissions concept, layered controls that establish the multiple control points between threats and the organization's assets, and policies that guide the stakeholders in implementation, maintenance and security programs in a security program. Some systems and data that may be stored may also be tested regularly. To understand the security requirements, we should clearly understand what is threat, what is vulnerability and what is risk, etc. The threats are events that could cause harm to the confidentiality, integrity and availability of the information or the information systems. This is what threat means. And exploiting vulnerability to cause harm through the unauthorized disclosure or misuse or alteration or destruction of information or information systems, internal or malicious or incompetent employees by acts of omission or commission, omission and errors, contractors and service providers and former insiders. Former insiders form a group of disgruntled employees. Okay. External threats are criminals, recreational hackers, competitors and terrorists, etc. The list is not limited to this only. This is a broad wide list. These are only examples which are given to you to understand what is threat and who are the people can cause the threats. Okay. If threat is vulnerability is a weakness in a system or control gaps that, if exploited, could result in unauthorized disclosure, misuse, alteration or destruction of the information or information systems. Vulnerabilities are generally grouped into two types, expected. Okay. The vulnerability can be like, if to understand it better, if I have an petrol or some inflammable material in my data center and it is close to the systems and there is a possibility of electrical leakage by way of short circuiting or anything, and there is a severe possibility that the electrical short circuit may cause a fire accident due to the presence of petrol or flammable material. So the risk is fire which is available even within the building or outside the building, but then vulnerability is keeping the flammable material and not maintaining the electrical circuits properly is the vulnerability. These two can cause a great risk of making the systems unavailable due to damage. So this is the example of vulnerability. Vulnerabilities also, known vulnerabilities are discovered by testing or other reviews or of the environment, knowledge of the policies, weakness, knowledge of inadequate implementations and knowledge of personal issues, etc. These are the known vulnerabilities like VAPT testing and all these things. Expected vulnerabilities are those that can reasonably be anticipated to arise in the future. Example, unanticipated, unpatched software or untested software, etc. Untrained person on these systems. You can expect some possibility of errors, vulnerability. New and unique attack methodologies that bypass the current controls, employee and contractor failures, etc. Okay. The IT security policy is one of the areas which addresses all these vulnerabilities and threats. The key actions that contribute to the success of a security policy are implementing through ordinary means such as system administration, procedures and acceptable use of policies, enforcing policy through security tools and sanctions like dealing with the areas of responsibility and for users, administrators, etc. Example is WebSense for tracking the web internet content based internet usage, internet sites that have been exploited, etc. Communication in a clear and understandable manner to all concerned, obtaining employee certification that they have read and understood the policies, providing flexibility to address the changes in the environment, and conducting annual review of the approval of by the board of directors. These will help in effective security policy implementation. One of the mechanisms that is practiced in the IT world is defense in depth to counter the threats and vulnerabilities to risks that arise out of the threats. Financial institutions should design multiple layers of if you look at the onion type of arrangement, you peel out one layer, it will come in other layers protecting the inner part. Like that, it's a onion layered kind of approach to the defense in depth. Establish several lines of defense between the attacker and the asset being attacked. An internet security, a packet filtering router with the strict access control rules in front of etc. An application level firewall in front of a web server or anything, a transaction server or etc. A database server with intrusion detection system located in various points between the servers and the certain hosts. Layers should be at multiple controls points throughout the communication and transactional flow, and should include both systems and manual processes also. The successfully attack an asset, each layer must be penetrated. With each penetration, the probability of detecting the attacker increases. This is the advantage of the defense in depth. And when you talk about network security is securing the transactions online in the wire, and also securing the data that is traveling and from the spoofing and wiretapping, etc. Multi-layers of access controls to protect against unauthorized access should be done. Group networks, servers, segregation of the networks, data, etc. Security domains, etc. to be segregated. Establish appropriate access requirements within and between the security domains. Implement appropriate technological controls to meet those access requirements constantly, and also monitor them. Monitor access domain access for the security policies, violations and anomaly activity, and to protect confidentiality, use appropriate encryption and keys, PKA mechanism. Financial institutions should also control access to applications by using authentication and authorization controls appropriately and robust for the risk of the application. Monitoring the access rights, ensure they are the minimum required and users' current business needs, commensurate with the users' business needs. Using the time of the day limitations, etc. to restrict the access to the data. Logging access and security events, etc. should be analyzed. Using the software that enables the rapid analysis of the user activities. All these things are application security controls. Security monitoring is one of the greatest requirement of the to ensure that the security is effectively been implemented and monitored and detected, violations are detected. Monitoring network and host activity, etc. Monitoring host and network conditions, identify the unauthorized configurations, etc. Analyzing the results of the monitoring and quickly identify, classify, escalate, report and guide the responses to security events. Responding to intrusions and other security events, and weakness is appropriately mitigated and appropriate risk assessment is carried out. And monitoring should be commensurate with the risk identification and failures and analysis of the security incidents. Support post-event forensic activities if necessary. and report legal authorities if there is a breach of trust, etc. And some of the suggested solutions include IT awareness, user and customer education, staff screening, etc. So EDD stands for employee due diligence. Ethical culture, promoting the emphasis of implement culture, embedding the strong control and risk culture in the banks, system certification by regulators before deployment, strengthen the governance, IT security, audit, awareness to increase the to CEO and board level to meet the SEBI clause 49 requirements. The bodies that help us in governing the IT security are RBI guidelines, Basel II, IT Act 2008, other statutes, risk frameworks, ISO 17799, ISO 27001, COVID 5. These are few examples of that guide us in the best to implement best security practices and implementations which run through the security, which mitigate the security concerns of the organization. Then after going through that security requirements, analysis of the risk, understanding risk, vulnerability, etc., we should also get into audit mode. Why we should audit, what is the need of audit, why we should do audit, and what are the benefits of audit, what are the objectives of audit, etc. All these things will have to be understood before we jump into audit topic. Banks try to achieve effective, secure and reliable computer systems through appropriate balance of different controls employed. A regular independent program to test the effectiveness of the controls, procedures, etc. and security to identify the lapses before they become operational risks and seriously jeopardize the business. Audits focus on evaluation of asset safeguarding, personal safety, data integrity, data availability, system effectiveness and efficiency. When you talk about effectiveness and efficiency, the difference is, many people get confused, but the difference is efficiency is the things doing right, while effectiveness is doing right things. One talks about optimum use of the resources provided, and other talks about the continuous results and the effectiveness. The audit area, the computer audit covers emphasize, provide the information on review of compliance to the legal and regulatory requirements by the organization, review of compliance of established policies and procedures, review of efficiency and effectiveness of the operations, review of sufficiency of controls and procedures, review of adequacy of suitability of risk assessment and relevant areas within the scope, review of fraud detection and prevention, review of integrity of applications, programs, operating system, review of suitability and controls designed for SDLC and control built-in input and output operations, review of employee activities and computer operations, etc. When we talk about this audit, the scope is one of the prime area. Unless you define a scope, the audit cannot be effective. Scope, in other words, called boundaries. What are the areas that to be looked? What are the requirements of the audit? What are you expecting out of the audit? This should be documented properly, which forms the document scope and criteria. Okay. The audit can be done in two approaches: audit around the computer and audit through the computer. When you talk about audit around the computer, it does not require a expert knowledge of the computer programs, etc. by the auditor. Examines internal controls and computer installations, input and output controls of the operations, and other physical security and roles and responsibilities are also examined in this. Review of conflict of interest or segregation of duties, whether properly implemented or not. All these things will be examined in this. Infers based on the compliance confidence. If I am able to see that the controls are effective by look of that, I am confident about that performance of that control, then my confidence will increase and then I may be satisfied with the controls that are in place. This approach does not work well with complex systems like for size or volume, cannot effectively infer due to deficiencies of software and other technical hardware. These are the limitations in this approach. And other approach is computer through audit. Involves testing of computer for logic and controls in the system. Records produced by the computer. Auditors require knowledge and skills and technical competence while performing this audit. Use in complex systems. Effective where substantial gaps exist. The one more criteria is special audits which are based on the specific scope and audit and need of the organization, like fraud audit, or system testing audit, BCP audit. This can be some specific topics like that. Objectives of the audits are: IS audit is a process of collection and evaluating of evidences to determine compliance to stated policy, procedures and regulators, etc. Evaluates the reliability of controls deployed and level of assurance provided to the business by these controls. This is the broad objective, and the objective can be specific depending on the type of audit also. What to look in audit? Review exposures to deterrent controls, that is internal or external, preventive controls, detective controls, corrective controls. Controls are classified in 4 categories which have been discussed, and the deterrent controls are which prevent any occurrence, etc. Corrective controls are mechanisms to correct those findings. Benefits of audits are: identify the risks of exposure early, deter from misuse of computer resources, conveys management a reasonable assurance on the controls and security programs and health of the systems, aid in the decision making process of the management. Okay. Now the next requirement is on the business continuity and disaster recovery. The objective of business continuity and disaster recovery, shortly called BC and DR, safeguard the organization from organization information and assets, data, plan for safety of personnel that are employed, provide minimum assured services to the customers or clients at an agreed level of performance, minimize the damage to assets and systems, etc. When we talk about definition, DR is an event, disaster is an event which results in denial or direct stoppage of essential services or functions for a considerable period of time, which result from natural disasters, hardware, software failures or malfunctions, malware attacks or acts of terrorism, failure of service providers or outsourced activities, errors and omissions of the employees or contracted persons. Okay. What will go into the BCDR plan? When we say BC, business continuity or disaster recovery plans, the plan should broadly contain policy and objectives, which objective of the business BCDR, scope again boundaries, management approval or commitment to the planned activities of the BCDR, resources requirement, either IT, hardware or infrastructure or other resources. Business impact analysis, you have to identify what are business activities that are covered under this, through which impact is analyzed, and then the strategies are prepared. Risk assessment and management of those BIA activities, strategies to address those risks, and then plans for the business continuity operations, implementation and testing. Testing is one area. Once you plan that, you have to test the plan whether your objectives have been met through the test through the plan, or any deficiencies are noticed in the plan will be evidenced in the test. Awareness and training. Once you develop all these activities, you have to create awareness among the employees to tell them what is their role, what is expected of them, and how they should behave in a disaster recovery mode, and audit of those entire areas. And finally, the maintenance. These are the elements that go into the business continuity and DR plan. The last topic is of the module C is legal framework and electronic transactions. The legal recognition of documents and records in electronic form is required to protect the rights of the parties to the transaction. the initiatives that have been taken by Indian government is the Indian initiative is a model law on electronic commerce on the lines of UNCITRL, United Nations Commission on International Trade, and other initiatives are IT Act, which most of the initiatives have been taken by most of the regulations have been provided by IT Act, like recognition of the electronic records, recognition of digital signatures, recognition of backup needs, and what is a website, how a computer has to be and should be isolated, what is a fraud, what is misuse, what is all these things have been defined in IT Act and its subsequent amendments in IT Act. Payment Settlement Act, Indian Penal Code, Indian Evidence Act, Bankers Book of Evidence, RBI Act, etc. To cover online transactions, EDA, demat holdings of holdings, credit cards, ATM frauds, and clearing, MICR, check truncation, etc. All these activities, online activities, and other activities of the banking using technology are covered under this legal frame. Future trends and threats. If you analyze dependence on the technology trends, telecom and banking convergence, risk in mobile money industry, cloud computing, mobile computing and wireless computing threats, ease of access to internet and tools to commit the frauds, faster speeds of the internet and access of the data, greater outsourcing, etc. are the future threats, trends and threats.